Audio log of Vanessa Shepard, Entry 6. June 6th, 2168. Another day in my life that I'll never forget. I was on an information retrieval assignment with one of my urchins. I had affectionately nicknamed him Bug a few assignments back. He was my best student, and we had been working together on missions for the past 6 months without incident. Today was going to be different, though. In the years since I had been recruited, the Alliance had started getting more than a little suspicious about the Reds and their activities. They were a privately funded public committee working in the city where the Alliance Parliament held most of its meetings, but none of the backers had Alliance ties, so they weren't really sure where all the money was flowing in from. They were trying to keep a careful eye on us, and it was our job to keep a careful eye on them. Bug and I had infiltrated an Alliance R&D ship that had just made its last drop-off before returning to the Mars archives. One of our dealers was taking part in the unloading process, and we were there to watch him and make sure nobody got suspicious. The whole thing went off without a hitch at first, and our cut of the sand for that shipment traded hands successfully. But the Alliance was onto us. Before our guy could make it back on the ship, the captain gave the go-ahead to lock down all the hatches and prepare for liftoff, while Bug and I were still aboard. Things had basically gone from routine to the worst possible situation we could be in. We were stowaways at that point, and by the time we got to Mars, the Alliance would have found us and taken us in for investigation. We couldn't give up any secrets about our operations to the Alliance, or the Reds would be finished, and so would we. The group would be disbanded and charged as criminals, I'd be hauled off to juvie, and Bug would be thrown back into the orphanage system where nobody wanted him. I wasn't about to let that happen. So I made a rash decision. We were getting out of there before they took off. We used the ventilator shafts to bypass security. Even with my implant, we weren't a match for Alliance soldiers in a fight, and I didn't want to draw any extra attention to us. We managed to get out of the ship, but by the time we did, their flight preparations were complete. The cargo bay doors opened up above the ship, and the vertical thrusters on the underside of the ship started to heat up, and we were directly underneath the ship, where the thrusters were going to fire to propel it into the air. There was no time to get away. I didn't think. I threw my arms around Bug and collapsed on top of him to shield him from the blast. We both screamed, and then everything went black. I woke up the next day in Victoria General Hospital. I had a few scrapes, some minor burns, and a bad headache, but nothing urgently wrong with me. The nurses couldn't really tell me anything about the incident. Alliance soldiers had brought us in, and they were trying to keep everything as classified as they could. When I asked them about Bug, they told me that he was in the ICU. His injuries were far worse than mine, but he was still alive. My heart sank. If I could have gotten out of bed and punched something, I would have. I was trying to save him. It should have been me on that operating table, not him. In the meantime, the Alliance had called in some of the major personnel from the Reds for questioning. I found out later that most of this questioning was put on hold until I could get results from my brain activity the next day, because even the R&D heads who dealt with biotics weren't sure how we had made it out of there alive. According to their reports, the barrier I was generating had to withstand the heat energy of a hydrogen-helium fission reaction, billions of kilojoules of heat per kilogram of helium-3 that they expended getting the cargo ship off the ground. Biotic barriers of that capacity were the kinds of things that only the most powerful L2s were capable of at the time. The probability of such a feat from an L1, from a child no less, was so small that it was pretty much a scientific impossibility. But we were alive, and the Alliance wanted to know why. While I was recovering, the Reds came clean with the Alliance about their red sand shipments and their experiments with using the drug as a biotic stimulant in our headache medicine. I don't really know all the details, but I do know that the Alliance ordered all of its charges against the Reds to be dropped once I was released from the hospital. Apparently, they had reached some sort of deal where our shipments would be monitored in exchange for us being let off the hook for the incident. I guess you could call it permission to do field testing, while the Alliance R&D came up with practical and mass-produced applications for it in their labs. Do you remember the friend I mentioned back when I talked about the terrorist attack on Victoria General? That was Bug. He had to be treated for a long time after the incident before he was back to 100%. I didn't speak with him much while he was being treated. The doctors didn't allow any visitors, and I don't think I could have faced him in the first place. I couldn't protect him from all this. And I was having enough problems of my own on the outside.